Hello everyone and welcome to another video here at Seth's Garage. Today we are working on Danny's second generation DA Integra. It's a car that's been sitting here for quite some time. I've gone over it just a little bit in the shop intro video. If you have not seen that, go take a look. There's a lot of cool stuff that will be happening on the channel in that video. And we finally got the last piece, well, hopefully the last piece of the puzzle to get this thing to at least run and drive, which is the hydro conversion bracket. Let me show you what this is about. So this is Danny's 90 or 91, I believe it's 91, Acura Integra LS. It's a car that he built back in the early 2000s. It actually has won a ton of awards at car shows from like Nopi and stuff like that, if you remember that wild time in car history. But these cars were made from 1990 to 1993, or at least sold in those model years in the US, and it's older tech, and they used a clutch cable. So let me show you here. These had a giant cable that came out of the firewall, went underneath, hooked up to the transmission, and instead of having a slave cylinder here, there's a giant bracket with a hole in it, and the cable would pull that bracket and engage the clutch that way. And then there's another guy here that is what would pull the cable. And as you can see, this thing's got a fat old turbo strapped to it. It's a built B series that was actually done by the guy that's making engines for King Motorsports, which is the only Mugen certified Mugen dealer in the US as far as I know. So cool spot, not too far from us. But the engine's built top to bottom, forged internals. We actually added turbo cams, redid most of the fuel system. It's going on a Honda S300. Did a hydro conversion with the Hasport mounts. It's got a JDM GSR 4.4 final drive, factory LSD transmission. That's a mouthful. We did the Skunk 2 Ultra intake manifold. So a bunch of stuff has changed. We also have been adding a C-back in it, redid all the intercooler piping, but this hydro conversion has been kind of a pain in the butt because the company that did make the bracket, it was like in indefinite backstock, and then I've been playing with making my own bracket, but I have not been able to get all the measurements correct. There's spacing between these two, angles between everything, all the different measurements to try to get the rod be aligned at a good angle. So that's a very long-winded way to say that we finally have stuff to put the car back together. The interior of this thing is in shambles because of working with the pedal. It's got basically nothing in it. The steering column sitting on the passenger seat. So I'm gonna see if I can get this thing going. I can get it installed, get the clutch to engage to a point where we can get the rest of the car going, and yeah, get this thing back on the street. I've had this car for entirely too long with all the stuff that's been going on with the transmission side of getting this car together. So let's get to it. As you can see here, this is the factory Integra pedal box. I have also tried playing with an EF pedal box that's underneath over there, which I modified to try to make fit and work because we had a bracket for that. That didn't work. So now we've got the, I believe it's Hush Performance V2 DA Integra bracket with their included master cylinder. So this has a bunch of adjustment. There's a slotted bracket there, and basically the name of the game is trying to get this rod to be as straight as possible and have full movement while the pedal engages. They've got this really cool trick little piece of hardware here. You do have to modify the pedal and drill a hole at the right measurement and angle to get this to work. And then there's a little standoff that you tighten up, and with a little spherical end, it allows movement. If I can somehow hold this, give me a second. There we go. So now you can see that engages nice and straight. There's full movement of the push rod on the master cylinder. So now we've got to install this in the car, do some riv nut stuff onto the firewall, get the reservoir in, get it plumbed, get it bled, and see if we can make it work. So the first thing is going to be installing the pedals in the car. As you can see, this thing is completely bare on the inside, And you can see here what I mean. This is actually the speedometer cable. This little guy spins and it's what turns the gauge. So, you know, the car was designed in the 80s and built in the early 90s, so it definitely has some older tech. And with all the upgrades we're doing, we are really trying to bring the car into, hold on, light off again. Trying to bring the car into a more modern era with clutch options, because these cable-driven clutch transmissions actually ran a smaller spline for the clutch disc. There's not a whole lot of clutch options. The cable stretches. If you were trying to put any kind of heavy-duty clutch on it, you end up snapping the cable. You can't find cables anymore. So we're trying to make it so that it's serviceable. It can make good power. It'd be awesome to see this thing make like somewhere around 350 to 400 wheel would be insane on this. So that's what we're going to try to shoot for, and it should be capable of it with the engine and turbo package. We'll see where we get. I think the fuel system, if anything, will be the thing that kind of keeps us from doing that. Maybe ignition, but yeah, just trying to modernize this car. Good electronics, you know, good options as far as upgrading the car in the future. So I'm going to get this thrown in and see where we get after that. All right, well, after reading the instructions, because real men read instructions, even though these are for an EF Civic and not for a DA Integra. Come on, Hush, do better. We are going to remove the cowl because we need to work on some stuff underneath here to be able to make room for the lines and fittings, and also have space to install these two rib nuts that will lock everything in place. So I'm going to go ahead and remove the wiper arms and cowl, and I think wiper motor also is going to have to get out of the way. So let's do that real quick, like this. All right, the next part of the kit would have been to drill a hole to pass this bulkhead fitting and use these two different lines to connect on either side of the firewall. One going from firewall to the clutch slave, and the other one from firewall to clutch master. I'm not going to do that just because I don't like drilling holes unless I absolutely have to. I like using holes that are already existing, and we have a big old like 40 mil hole right here where the factory clutch cable went through. So as you can see, there's a different braided line going through there. I already had one remade that actually uses the same exact fittings as this kit does. It's a banjo on one side and AN line on the other side. This is from the kit that I was trying to piece together. It's the correct length. So I'm going to use that. I'm going to find a grommet so I can put that in the firewall and get everything nice and sealed up. But I can actually go ahead and install the pedals now. Wherever they went, they're over there. Because I don't have to try to drill between like the firewall and the heater core and all that up in that corner over there. So I'm going to go ahead, get the pedals installed, make sure all the links are okay before I go ahead, get a grommet, and try to tighten it all up and see if it works. All right, after some really uncomfortable upside down, lying down stuff, and cussing at the accessibility of these pedals, we got them in. So it's nice and solid on there. It does still have a little bit of play just because the pin is not on the booster. But we've got a clutch pedal. And now, let me bring the light up to here so you can see this a little bit better. We have two lines we need to connect. There is the feed line here, which is this hose that has a push lock style fitting that I need to install. And then the other one is this banjo fitting, which goes for the pressure line going to the slave. And that uses a low profile bolt with two low profile washers on there to seal it up. So let's do that and see if we can get one step closer to making the clutch work. When I'm doing these push lock fittings, these are just like barbed and they just go onto the hose and then that locks them in. I do like to use a little bit of lubricant, you know, WD-40, whatever, just to make this process a little bit easier, especially in a situation such as this where the hose has to be clocked properly to make it easier. So I'm going to go ahead and do that and then get this one in. All right, we have got feed line tightened up. We have got pressure line tightened up. So now we're going to go ahead and fill the system up with fluid, make sure there's no leaks, and then start to hopefully get this thing bled out and working. You might see that there's a bracket here without any bolts, and that is just another reinforcement. This one does require drilling into that piece right here. But I'm going to go ahead and wait on this until everything is working 100%. Again, I don't like making holes unless I absolutely have to, and if for whatever reason something changes and this doesn't work, I don't want to have to drill holes that I will then not use. So I'm going to make sure it works, and then we'll do this part. I'm just using some standard .4 synthetic stuff for now, nothing too fancy until this is 100% dialed. And yeah, I know, no funnel gang. I'm not one of those guys, especially in a customer car. Brake fluid will eat paint, and especially in a car like this, I don't want to take a chance. All right, update. Everything's a mess. Had to take everything back apart. Started bleeding the system. Got pressure right away, which is cool. Bled a lot easier than stuff I was piecing together for my own kit. I think a lot of that has to do with the Wilwood master cylinder, but it was flexing a lot just because this is thinner metal and I had not installed this third bracket. So I had to blow it all back apart so I could drill 2 holes up underneath here for 2 rib nuts that were really fun to get to because of all the wiring that's in this corner. Didn't allow the tool to fit, but I got them. So now we get to put everything back together and see if we can get this bled out. Wish me luck. All right, we got the bracket all back together with the extra little reinforcement now. I did have to do quite a bit to get it all out and then get it all back in. I was also able to install one of the mounting bolts that's kind of difficult to get to. I don't know if you can see it, kind of. Let me see if I can get you in here. Right back there, that little nut is very difficult to get to with the bracket, so I actually installed the pedals and then the bracket and then the reinforcement. Got it all back in. Got all the lines hooked back up. Got the fluid back on it, or back in the system, and I actually messed with this bracket a little bit just so that the fluid inside the reservoir is a little bit more level, and that way it can hold a little more fluid and it doesn't risk leaking out. So let's try bleeding this thing again, and hopefully for the last time. And just like that, we have a working clutch. So shout out to Luis. He's a friend of mine that lives nearby. He's always down to come and help out. He was helping me bleed this thing and even hung out while I had to remove, redo, drill, reinstall all of the pedal components, which took about, I don't know, 2 hours or so. So I'll put his IG handle right here. He's got a really awesome little K-swap to EG. And yeah, thanks, man. But yeah, now that the clutch works and the whole kit is installed, I can get onto the next part of this project, which will probably be the next time you see this car. We'll be taking all of this out of here. Transmission's getting sent out to get refreshed. It did have a higher RPM second gear grind, and then engine will do a couple seals that are left, valve lash, button it up. There's some fittings on the back for the breather ports that need to get finished, and then the bay will be getting the wiring sorted, cleaned up, and yeah, get this thing back together, get it back to Danny. I know he's been wanting the car back for some time. I know I've been wanting to get the car out of here for some time, so it's great to finally have this piece installed. But yeah, I'm looking forward to this thing making cool turbo sounds, and eventually my car making cool turbo sounds, and having 2 turbo cars out together. I don't know that I've ever had a turbo car out with him before, so that would be a really cool experience to happen. I've known him for a long time and we haven't gotten to do that, so yeah, I'm pumped to get this going, and thank you so much for watching. I'll see you on the next one.